Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello. Now, I haven't done aspects for a while, so I thought I'd return to that. I have some new students at the moment, and there's one in particular, I'm thinking about their chart, and they have a number of oppositions and squares. And I just happened to mention to them today that it's not a bad thing. We really have to move away in astrology from saying things are good or bad, because that's never the case, that something's good or it's bad. It might be easy, it might be challenging, but it's not good or bad. It's very reductionist to talk about anything in astrology using the terms good or bad. And this poor student who's just started had watched some ridiculous YouTube video where somebody was saying in there, because I sort of happened to make a passing comment about degrees of things, because they were learning degrees at that point in time. You know, there's 30 degrees to each sign of the zodiac, there's 30 degrees in each house, depending on what house system you use, and if you could be born with 0 degrees something or 29 degrees something, and they had a particular planet in their chart that's 29, only one that was 29 degrees, and they said, is that bad? I went, no. And they'd watched a video, and whoever it was, I will shoot the person that did the video, they were saying, if you've got 29 degrees it's bad, if you've got 0 degrees it's just numbers, for goodness sakes. It's just numbers. Let's stop making things up. And also, please, as astrologers, stop talking about things as being good or bad. It's so reductionist, because especially when you first start learning astrology, it's exciting, and it's also mind-bogglingly scary when somebody says, you've got an opposition in your chart. Now, we're going to do oppositions today, because this is what today's podcast is all about. Oppositions are not deadly. So I went to my good old friends over at astro.com, and I thought, let's make it difficult today. I thought I'd do, in one person's chart, I thought I'd do Sun opposition Pluto, Moon opposition Uranus, and Venus opposition to Neptune. Now, you either may know or not know that Uranus and Neptune conjuncted in the 1990s. And I love it when Astro Databank's search tool turns up, and I'd search from 1900 to the present day, and it only brought up 21 records. So, I was so excited. So we'll use, Mary loves using 3 examples. So let me just decide which 3 I'm going to use. So we're going to use the charts of 3 people, one born in 1915, one born in 1920, and then, as sometimes happen with astrological aspects, there's an enormous gap until we get to the year, let me just go back, Astro Databank, there were a few in so I'd asked for Sun opposition Pluto, Moon opposition Uranus, Venus opposition Neptune. So these are personal planets in opposition to the 3 outer planets. So they went from 1920, didn't happen again until 26, didn't happen again until 29. Then one person in 1940, one person in 1945, and then an absolute blank until 1991. Now, it's just the way that the outer planets went. But anyway, these are the 3 people that we've got. Now, before I kick off with their charts, I just want to reiterate also about chart shape, that if you have a lot of oppositions in your chart, it is going to affect your chart shape. So your chart shape will never be with an opposition now, so remember this, it's never going to be a bowl. It cannot possibly be. It could be, you could have an opposition in a locomotive, you definitely can have an opposition in splashes and splays, and you can also have an opposition in seesaws. And in fact, one of the charts we're going to look at is a flipping seesaw. It could be more seesaw. So it's splash, splay, possibly a locomotive, or a seesaw shape chart is going to give you oppositions. And this is why I found, learning about the indigos and their one-sided charts and what was going on for them, that there were so few of them, I'm saying a whole generation of people, that have oppositions. And to my mind, I don't see oppositions as being a bad thing at all. I think it's quite good because it gives you two perspectives on something. Now, me personally, I've got a Venus-Uranus opposition. So Venus is all about love and affection. Uranus is all about freedom. They're in direct opposition to each other. Do not tie me to the kitchen sink or make me permanently pregnant making your dinner, because I will run. So for myself, Venus is about love. Uranus is about freedom. I need to have freedom in close personal relationships. Now, when you're looking at oppositions to outer planets, it's sort of different to personal planets. And we also have to remember the maths of things. It would be near enough impossible, I think, to have Venus in opposition to the Sun, because Venus never moves more than however many degrees. It was 40 something degrees, I think. Venus is never more than 40 something degrees away from the Sun. You can have the Moon in opposition to anything, okay, because the Moon changes sign every couple of days, so that's an easy opposition to have in your chart. You could quite easily have that Moon opposition to anything. Your Sun, your Mercury, your Venus, your Mars. Moon could be in opposition to absolutely any of those little fellas. Same goes for Moon to Mars. Mars can be in opposition to a number of things, and again, it's a generational thing to have something like, I don't know if Jupiter and Saturn can be in opposition. Hold on, let me check. Oh yes, you can. Jupiter and Saturn can go in opposition. So just use Astro Data Bank. Jupiter opposition to Saturn, blimey, we've got 3,178 records, and they've started. This is a guy called George Boresh. He's a student astrologer, a member of Mensa, and just a quick example, his Jupiter is in the sign of, where's he gone? Jupiter's in Libra, and Saturn is in Aries. So those are opposite signs. They're not in direct opposition. But anyway, the different signs of the zodiac, in opposition to each other. Libra and Aries are opposite. I hadn't specified being exact when I asked, and I'd also done Placidus, which I don't use, but anyway. So now, obviously, eventually, Uranus and the outer planets, I presume they can. Oh, let me check. I don't want to be telling you information that isn't true, so let's have a look and see if we can have a Uranus-Pluto opposition. Hold on. Now, that can't happen every day of the week because they've got different speeds, but example here, this is, what year are we now? We're the year 1900. 1st of January 1900. Oh, interesting, look at that. 1st of January 1900, this poor bod was born, and they've got, Lord, what a stellium. They've got Jupiter, Uranus, Mercury, Saturn, all in Saggy, and Pluto's in Gemini. Yeah, so Uranus can opposition to Pluto, and then so you can work those things out for yourself, but it's not going to happen every day of the week. And the conjunction, which a lot of you guys were born with, of Uranus and Neptune, that only happens once every 170 years. And then if you were born with Uranus and Pluto conjunct, you would have been born in the 1960s, and again that won't repeat for a hell of a long time. So those conjunctions and oppositions are discussed in Richard Tarnas's book, The Cosmos and Psyche. So their orbits will allow them to do that. Anyway, going back to the charts that we're going to be discussing, and an opposition is, imagine you're sat at the dinner table, you're Putin, and you're getting your interviewer to sit at the other end of the table. You are making eye contact, that person's right not next to you, so the imagery would be with an opposition. that you're not staring into that person's eyes because you're not that close, but you are looking at each other and you can see what they're doing. But the connection, an opposition connection, is so far apart that the tendency can be to swing from one planet to the other. So in my case, with the Venus-Uranus opposition, when I was much younger, I had a relationship and then I'd finish the relationship, or the relationship would be finished and I wouldn't really be that arsed. There were a few that I was upset about. And it so happened in my domestic life that my father, his job involved a lot of travel, and I distinctly remember telling somebody at some point, oh, I don't mind my partner travelling a lot because that's what my dad did when I was little, because I always knew he would come home. I also knew that he loved me, so that wasn't an issue. So I grew up in a household where one of my major carers, i.e. my dad, not my mum, because she did the majority of the caring, with him not being there all the time because he was away on an aeroplane in another country, was just something I grew up with and accepted, and that's just a thing. I have 2 siblings that have that same, not the whole family, but 2 siblings out of 5 of us have that, a Venus-Uranus opposition. So the other thing to remember is that if you have an opposition, please don't look at it as good or bad, but please consider it as something that you need to give both sides of it some attention, because were I to ignore my Venus-Uranus opposition, for instance, now that I didn't give some TLC to my Venus and I didn't give any TLC to my Uranus, both of them would start to act up a bit, and it's very possible, if you don't accept your oppositions, they can be projected onto others. So I'm going to read from a couple of books. I'm going to quickly go through these charts just as examples and read the blurb for them. So we're going to start out with chart number 1. Now the first guy we're looking at is called Pete, I presume I'm pronouncing it right, Rugolo, not too sure. Italian, oh no, he's Italian American, so we're going to be Rugolo. Yeah, I just met somebody Italian this week at knitting group. I don't knit, I crochet, and she was telling me, I've got to tell you, this is really interesting. She was telling me that in the Italian language, they have 5 vowels, just the same as in the British language, A-E-I-O-U. But they only have 7 pronunciations. And she said it was incredibly difficult for her to learn how to pronounce English correctly because of the various different spellings. Sorry, the same spellings, we've got things, but totally different pronunciations. So just as an example, though, T-H-O-U-G-H, and then through, T-H-R-O-U. It's like the O's now gone to oo, and then bow, B-O-U-G-H, same blinking spelling. The O and the U. She said when you learn the Italian pronunciation of something, there are only 7 different pronunciations of those 5 vowels. British, English, forget it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I know a teeny bit of Italian because I worked in an Italian restaurant. So Rugolo would be how you pronounce it. I presume. Write into me, email me, tell me that's totally wrong, but I believe that's what this, well, not believe, I heard it this week, that once you learn how to pronounce in Italian, you can read Italian and you will be pronouncing it correctly. I thought, oh, you just can't do that in English. You absolutely can't. Oh, no wonder it was so frustrating for her. Anyway, so he was born on the 25th of December 1915. He's an Italian-American musician, noted for the innovative arrangements he wrote for Stan Kenton's orchestras during 45 to 49. Although an important figure in the history of jazz, his focus gradually turned entirely to scoring for television and film. Scoring means writing for. Now that is Astro Databank's interpretation, which they very, very rarely update. So if I go to Wikipedia, there's a bit more blurb in there. So he was born in San Piero Patti in Sicily. His family emigrated to the United States in 1920 and he settled in Pengrove, California. He began his career in playing music, the baritone horn, like his father, but he quickly branched out into other instruments, notably the French horn and the piano. He received a bachelor's degree from San Francisco State College and went on to study composition with Darius Milhaud at Mills College in Oakland, California, and earned his master's degree. What a lad. There's a lovely photograph of him there, and he's at a piano, one of those pianos that's got a lid on it, with a big lid, Steinway, whatever you call them, and his reflection is in the lid of the piano, and I think he's got a pencil in his hand. It looks like he's sort of writing music or something. Great picture. He died at the age of 95. What a man. He lived a long time in Sherman Oaks in California, so he didn't move too far. So he wrote lots of scores for television and film. Jack the Ripper, The Sweet Ride, Underground Aces, The Choo Choo and Philly Flash, TV's top theme. So he wrote a lot of music. Okay, it's music that he wrote because he's a musician. So let's have a look at his chart. So good old Pete, here we go. He's got a Gemini ascendant. Oh, that's going to make him chatty, isn't it? And his chart is absolutely a seesaw. He's got 5 planets on one side versus 1, 2, 3. Mary, there's going to be 5 opposite if you've got 5 on one side. And it's his sun sign in Capricorn that's opposition to his Pluto. The sun is opposite Pluto, the moon is opposite Uranus, and Venus is opposition to Neptune. So well done, Astro.com. You've turned me up the chart I asked for. So how's that going to feel for you when you have your personal planets, Sun, Moon, Venus in opposition? Now, what's interesting in his chart is his moon is nowhere near his sun sign. So he's not born on a full moon. He's born a couple of days after. Because if he was born on a full moon and then his moon would be in Cancer because his sun's in Capricorn. So it's a couple of days later and he's got moon in Leo. Because when he was born, the sun was in Capricorn and Uranus was the next sign of the zodiac in Aquarius. Because I'd asked the computer to give me Sun opposition Pluto, Moon opposition, what I said, what did I asked for? I had asked for Sun opposition Pluto, Moon opposition Uranus, and Venus opposition to Neptune, which, because I was thinking that would be a sort of a tricky astro combo to have. So is what have I asked for? Yeah, Venus opposition to Neptune. His Neptune's in Leo and his Venus is in Cap. What have I asked for? I've asked for Venus opposition to Neptune. Venus is opposition to Neptune, but it's out of sign because his Venus is 2 degrees Leo. And sorry, his Neptune's 2 degrees Leo and his Venus is 29 degrees into Capricorn. So it's a mathematical opposition, but out what we call out of sign. Okay, you with me? You can see the charts. They're on the podcast show notes. So the chart is there, or you can go to Astro Databank and search for Pete Rugolo, R-U-G-O-L-O. So what's it going to say? So what's it going to feel like? So let me just read you some blurb for Sun opposition Pluto. Okay, not judging it as being bad. Now, in Astrology for Dummies, which I hope you got a copy of, the latest copy, because it mentions yours truly in there, good old Ray Orion says, Sun, Pluto, if these two planets form a major aspect, control is a matter of importance for you. This aspect reveals the way you balance your core identity with your need to express personal power and to deal with authority. So she divides it into conjunction, harmonious aspects, which is a sextile and trine, and then hard aspects, which will be a square or opposition. So she's lumping them together. And she says here, art aspects, competition eggs you on. Acutely aware of the uses of personal power, you're manipulative, resourceful, and sometimes intimidating. The challenge, whether you're competing with others or simply trying to fulfill your own considerable ambition, is to avoid being overly aggressive or power crazy. Now, she uses the example of Friedrich Nietzsche, Neitzdche. He has a sun in Libra and he had Pluto in Aries. So he wrote quite a bit, if I remember right. He was a bit of a philosopher or something, but he did have some crazy ideas, but we'll blame his sun opposition Pluto there. Now, if you were born in the 1990s, you could have a sun opposition to Pluto, because Pluto was in the sign of Scorpio then. But then that would rule you out of being an indigo. There are a few signs of the zodiac from the 90s now that can't possibly be one-sided chart indigos, and they're the spring babies. So if your sun sign is Taurus, Gemini, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, you're less likely to have a one-sided chart just because of where the outer planets are. Okay. Right, so let's give you the blurb about Moon opposition Neptune. Beg your pardon. Moon opposition Uranus. So she says here, why settle for dull predictability when you don't have to, and you don't? Not if the ever-changing moon in your chart pairs up with wayward Uranus, the planet of defiance. So a hard aspect, this is an opposition, Moon opposition Uranus, which your man Pete Rugolo has got. He's got Moon in Leo, and he's got we're doing Moon opposition to Uranus. He's got Moon in Leo and Uranus in Aquarius. I'll get my head screwed on right in a minute. Talented and distractible, you can't tolerate restrictions. You can get worked up, and occasionally you generate or attract a crisis. To maintain your independence, you may unconsciously distance yourself from others. Okay. Now, with this man working for television, I would have thought the fact that he worked for TV, that would keep his moon very, very happy, and it's in his second house. And the people that I know that have got Moon opposition Uranus, if you can predict anything about them, then you're not talking about Uranus. So there definitely is an emotional unpredictability there. And it's pretty much a strong opposition because the Moon's 17 degrees and Uranus is 13 degrees. So yeah, it's well within orb. And in fact, that's the only major aspect that his Moon makes, is just bashing about opposition to Uranus. So it doesn't say on there too much, and I haven't read, and I'm not going to go about marriage, children, babies, girlfriends or whatever. It's not mentioned, even though, mind you, he's got a sun in the 7th, so one would assume that he got hitched at some point. Have we got anything? No, nothing. He just died aged 95. Nothing about getting married. Born, died, occupations, years active. How strange. Bachelor's degree, graduated, worked occasionally, dum. No, doesn't mention if he's got hitched at all. He's got a big body of work there. I mean, that is an amazing amount of scores that he wrote. The music for film and television scores he wrote from 1951, and he's still writing in 1997. Crikey, that's a really, really long list. So that all that opposition in his chart would have fired him up. Now, opposition is going to do one of two things. It can make you, because what I was explaining to this student was that oppositions and squares don't let you become the Buddha. I swear the Buddha didn't have an opposition. He couldn't possibly have done. If you're going to be the Buddha, you're going to have trines and sextiles in your chart. You're going to be internally as calm as mud. Now, with an opposition or a square, your internal self is going to be busy, dizzy, wizzy. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. And this lad, this Pete Rugolo, he's got a lot of that because he's got a seesaw chart. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. Okay, so that's Moon opposition Uranus. Now, Venus opposition to Neptune. So it's out of orb. Let us listen to what our friend tells us. Oops, where's all my buttons? Venus lives for romance and beauty. Glamorous Neptune encourages mystery and magic. When they're in sync, you walk on air, but events can bring you back down to earth in a hurry. Illusion enters your life in a positive way through art, music and film. Well, blow me, isn't that what he does? But you're prone to starry-eyed infatuation. Being realistic about romance isn't your strength. You fall for Heathcliff every time until at last you don't. So she's using examples of Tina Turner, Mia Farrow and Kim Kardashian. So yeah, they're pretty good examples of relationships that didn't work. But Venus opposition to Neptune, because we have to remember as well that Neptune is the planet of illusion, but also deception and deceit. So I don't have that. I've got Venus opposition Uranus, but Venus opposition Neptune's a different ballgame altogether. But if you're creative in some way, which he was, and to my mind, as far as somebody that wrote scores for TV programs and TV films, and it's an enormous body of work he's got, he must have been pretty good at it. I say, died when he was 95, so well done him. He lived a life and was productive, and a Capricorn will like to be productive. Now, a second example is a guy called Jan Solberg, and he was born in 1920, and he was a Norwegian resistance fighter. He was born in Oslo in Norway. This is a nice AA chart, so that means accurate info. AA is the best rating for Rodden rating charts. Someone somewhere's got it written down, an official piece of flapping paper. So he was a resistance fighter during World War II. He was a student at the Norwegian Institute of Technology when the war broke out, but soon became involved with the resistance movement. He had to escape to Sweden, and from there went to Great Britain, where he was recruited as a special operations executive. He was later transferred to the Secret Intelligence Service. In March 1944, he was sent to Norway on a secret mission. Together with Johan Sverdal, he operated the radio station with a code name DAG in the Trondheim area. The aim was to carry out intelligence against German warships in the Trondheim's fjord. The Germans probed the station in September 1944, and Solberg was shot by German soldiers on the 11th September 1944, aged 23. Solberg was posthumously awarded the St. Olav's Medal with Oak Branch. He was posthumously honoured with the British Kingdom's commendation for brave conduct. At the place where he fell, a memorial stone was erected in 1947 with the inscription, "Here Jan Solberg fell in the fight for freedom and justice, 11th September 1944. Solberg's name is also on the memorial plaque next to those who died during World War II in the entrance of the main building of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So he was 23. He was shot. So let's have a look at his chart. And he didn't live that long life that your Pete fella did. He's still got a seesaw chart. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 opposition. They're not quite so opposing everything. He's got Sun in Capricorn again, opposition Moon. So Sun in Capricorn, opposition Pluto in Cancer. He's got Venus in Aquarius, opposition Neptune in Leo. Now his Venus opposition, Venus is 29 degrees and Neptune is 13 degrees. It's not quite. Why has it turned it up? Oh, astro.com, you've let me down. He's definitely got Moon opposition to Uranus, because Uranus is now transited into the sign of Pisces and his Moon's in Virgo. But his Venus opposition Neptune's a bit out of orb there, 13 degrees to 29. But they're in opposite signs, so maybe that's... Oh, I remind you, I'd only asked for signs and oppositions. I can't remember what the orb was that they gave me. But he's got a Leo ascendant. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And he has Neptune retrograde on the ascendant. Neptune's a very, very, very sensitive, psychic-y type of planet. But he's involved in Secret Service. How would that manifest? The MC's in the 8th. I haven't done the transits for his death. And the Sun is in the 6th. Pluto's in the 12th. And he definitely has a seesaw chart. I've already read the blurb of what the various different things mean. But we've got, as I say, we're doing these 3 people that are completely different people, but they all have similar aspects. So your Pete and your Jan have got them in the same sign. So let's go on to Misha, who is still alive, obviously. Well, not obviously, because she's born in 1991. She could have passed, but she hasn't. She has, oh gosh, they've all got Leo ascendant. 2 of them have. What was Pete? Pete was a Gemini, wasn't he? Yeah. So she has a Leo ascendant. We'll read her blurb in a minute. Yes, so she's got the Sun opposition Pluto. So she cannot be an indigo, as far as I'm concerned. So Misha Ge, was born in Moscow in the Russian Federation, 17th May 91. She's a Uzbekistani figure skater and has won 7 international medals and 2 Uzbekistan national titles. He or she is an A rating. Male, big one. Gosh, my mistake. He finished in the top 10 at 3 ISU championships and competed in the 2014 Winter Olympics, finishing 17th. Misha Ge was born to skating coaches Larissa and Jungi. He is of Russian, Chinese and Korean descent. From the age of 10, he lived in Beijing, China, where his parents coached. He also resided in Hong Kong, China and Taiwan. He's moved to the United States in mid-2009, returned to Beijing in 2013. He speaks Russian, Mandarin and English. Wow, those are 3 different languages, aren't they? He's taken choreography courses at the Beijing Dance Academy and the Hollywood Dance Academy. I mean, he was born into this, wasn't he? His parents are skaters. They didn't really have a chance, did he? So the Sun's very high in the chart. It's up in the 10th, and Pluto's in Scorpio in the 3rd. So the Moon is in Cancer, and Uranus is in Capricorn. Venus is conjunct, opposition Neptune. So that's interesting, isn't it? So he's got the Uranus-Neptune conjunction, okay, which is the indigo signature. And he's got a direct opposition to his moon, and his moon's conjunct Venus. Dum, 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 dum. Wow, okay. And his conjunction of the outer planets is in his 5th house of creativity. So, question mark, does he consider the dance, because basically skating is dancing on ice, does he consider that to be the creativity? Don't know, we'd have to ask him, wouldn't we? He has got 2 planets in the 12th and Chiron, and he has got Mercury conjunct the MC in Taurus. Wow, and he's bilingual. Very, very different languages. But we've got, again, a seesaw chart, but this time it's 4 against 6. Pluto, yeah, so there's 4 planets against 6 planets, but it's still a seesaw chart. Not to say you have to have a seesaw chart to have oppositions. So returning to where we started, I'm now going to quote Margaret E. Hone in her lovely book, The Modern Textbook of Astrology. I do love her stuff. And she says about, and this is on page 182, under aspects, any 2 planets exactly in opposition to each other in a chart are in actuality connected with each other's by polarity, i.e. a great circle passing through the north and south poles, and the one planet must pass through the other. Hence, it's possible that the principle of the one planet may supplement that of the other, though in general a tenseness may be expected. T-square. The tenseness will be aggravated if another planet or planets is square to both ends of the opposition. Mediation. The tenseness will be lessened if the other planet or planets is trine to one end of the opposition and sextile to the other. So the following paragraphs explain these terms, and she's gone on to trines, squares, sextiles, blom. Now she unfortunately says that, well, she says sextiles are helpful, but less so than a trine. There will be an accentuation of positivity or negativity. Be very, very careful about reading older people's blurb about things being good or bad. There is no such thing. She also covers unaspirated palettes. Love those. So I'm just going to do one last quote about oppositions. And this is the lovely Diane L.K. Kramer in her book Managing Your Health and Wellness. She says, in general, the aspects are divided into what are known as hard or stressful aspects, or soft or harmonious aspects. The major hard aspects used to interpret your chart are the square and opposition. The square aspect consists of planets in a 90-degree relationship to each other. Astrologers use orbs of allowable distance to determine the angular relationship between the planets. Therefore, if an orb of 6 degrees is used for a square, the allowable distance for two planets in a square aspect would be from 84 degrees to 96 degrees apart. The opposition aspect is 180 degrees. And then she talks about soft aspects. It's important to remember that the following definitions of the major aspects in the birth chart are read strictly as planet to planet and do not take into account the rest of the aspects in your chart or the planets in the signs and houses. Therefore, you should use this information as a guide to the possibilities in your chart, which are modified for better or worse by the rest of your birth chart. It takes more than one planetary aspect in a chart to determine a condition. Now she's talking about health here. And she says about Sun opposition Pluto on the health side of things, she says that you're tough and resilient with a sound constitution. You have a powerful personality and much drive, but tend to push yourself to the limits of your body's endurance, causing a breakdown in health and a fluctuating recuperative ability. You're prone to infections, stress-related illnesses, swellings and abscesses. Outdoor exercise helps you reduce stress. Hard Sun-Pluto aspects are also associated with drastic health measures. So one wonders if this little lad, the Misha chappie, whether or not I would expect if he's a skater and he's internationally respected and his parents are skaters and he comes from Russia, he's probably going to push himself to some enormous degree. Yeah. Now, obviously, you can be born with an opposition and then you can have a transit that will oppose something. Now, me personally, I've never really felt anything about a planet opposing any planets in my chart when they're transiting. It could be that I do have a lot, because I do have a lot of oppositions in my chart. I have, where are we now? My oppositions are Mercury opposition North Node, Venus opposition Uranus, Mars opposition Uranus. Oh, I've only got 2. There's me thinking of millions. But the other ones I've got a lot of is squares. So I've only got 2 major ones. The rest of my chart is flipping squares. So I might not personally feel them so much. But when it comes to transiting outer planets opposition to something in your chart, because they're there for such a considerable amount of time, possibly when they go retrograde, so say transiting Pluto is opposition to your natal moon at the moment, transiting, you might not feel a thing until Pluto gets exactly conjunct to the degree. So you've got a 15-degree moon and Pluto's 15 degrees, and then Pluto does a wobbler and decides to go retrograde. So, and then goes woomph back onto your moon again. I think that's something that can be more perceived and felt than just something going past. This is just my perspective on it. I tend to think that transiting conjunctions, and I'm suffering from the Saturn conjunction at the moment, and the Neptune and the Uranus on my MC, the exact conjunctions can definitely be felt, and they feel, especially when they're retrograding, and if you've ever had it before, so I've got Saturn conjuncting, transiting my sun sign, I've had that, because I'm 60-something, I've had it before, and it's very, very, very much like, oh, deja vu here. So I'm trying to deal with it differently. So transits, as I say, can sometimes be felt as oppositions, but it could be when it's an outer planet. If you say you've got a very bold chart and you were born with all your planets in Scorpio and your Pluto in Scorpio as well, Pluto is never in your lifetime ever going to be in opposition to anything in your chart. It's not going to happen, because you'd have to be alive for 280 something blinking years, yeah. So that's as a transit. But in your own chart, an opposition is like, I've spent years as an astrologer working on my Venus-Mars opposition to my Uranus. I'm so aware of it, and I do allow my Uranus the space that it needs. I do give my Venus what it wants. This is part of what it is, talking to you. So keep in mind your oppositions, and the way to make them better is to take each opposition planet, so whatever you've got opposition to, whatever it is, take each of those planets out and treat it every now and again. So whatever the planet is, let it do its thing, and then let the other side of your chart, the opposite planet, let it do its thing, yeah. Because if you ignore those opposition planets and never allow them the space to breathe and do their thing, and you suppress them, and I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do this, don't allow them some expression. Find a way to do it. All depends, obviously, on what houses we're talking about here. Yeah, so houses makes a difference as well. But allow those oppositions some sort of expression, healthy expression, so that they can feel heard and understood. And then you'll find that whatever the opposition that you do have will be like our first example there with Pete. I mean, that's an amazing amount of work that he did. I've got no idea what it was like personality-wise. I don't know, I wasn't around. I haven't even Googled that. He could be an absolute beast. But I doubt very much he would have produced that amount of work, and people would have accepted it if he had been a beast. Yeah. So today we've been talking about oppositions. Have a look in your chart. Wing me over an email. I am going to be doing another webinar. I'm tossing up. I do actually want to do it on solar arcs, because I haven't done a webinar on solar arcs yet. So there will be one coming up. So watch this space. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, ping me an email and I'll add you on. There'll be you and 670 something other subscribers that get all of every month you get each sign of the zodiac's astrology. So you get a few sentences about your sign of the zodiac. You'll get something that I might write. It all depends how I'm feeling. An article I might have written, something in the alternative world that might have happened last year. I wrote a lot about the proving of the butterfly that I did, because don't forget I'm also an alternative therapist. So it's not, well, there'll always be some astrology in there, don't get me wrong, there'll always be astrology in there, but there might be some other blurb in there, and there might be an invite to this, there might be a discount code, so it's worth subscribing. And it only comes out once a month, and it's generally either on the 1st or the 2nd of every month. So yeah, ping me an email. I'm waffling now. Have a lovely week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.